Hi, I'm Diana Sette, and I'm here to speak with Reverend Bunch today. We're going to be talking about the election and what are the priorities in the community. Really honored to have this time. And so why don't you first just tell us who you are?
Well, my name is Reverend E, Regis Bunch. I go by Regis or Regi. My pronouns are he, him, and his. I'm originally from Jefferson, Ohio, where the cows moo and the chickens lay their eggs. Grew up as a country boy, making my first money working inside of farms and milking cows and shoveling stalls out, cleaning cow stalls out. And grew up in one of the only black church one of two black churches out there in rural Jefferson, Ohio. The Central Missionary Baptist Church, which was the meeting place of pretty much all the black people in that area who were farmers like ourselves, grew large gardens, and my mom, being a single mom who was raising 7 kids by herself after my father died unexpectedly at 49, leaving her to raise all these children. So we stayed out here in Ohio. My mom's originally from Memphis, but was raised in Chicago. Met my father through some 1980s type of speed dating thing through a newspaper. Anyway, and she came out here, had all these kids by my father, including myself. And the church became really important to me. I began to orientate myself to God and community. I was more or less interested in the community that the church offered, which was a place to lay all your burdens. I experienced a high amount of racism growing up out there in rural Ohio, being called the N-word in kindergarten, and so lost my innocence at a very young age. You know, all that kid innocence you lose when you realize the world does not want you. And so I've always carried this kind of grudge against, I thought it was white people, but it wasn't. It was against white supremacy. That's what I found out what my grudge was against. I didn't find that out until I went to college, though. And when I went to college, I found out, and I dived into that grudge by reading The Souls of Black Folk.
And where did you go to college?
American Baptist College, which was the epicenter of the civil rights movement in the 1960s in Nashville, Tennessee. C.T. Vivian went there, John Lewis went there. And it was at this school that organized other college students to desegregate Nashville. And we're reading books called The Souls of Black Folk. W.B. Du Bois, this two-ness, this doubleness. I said, oh, that's the grudge. That's my grudge. It was against policies set in place at the very founding of this country, where we were meant to be divided. We were meant to hate each other. We were meant for a dominant society to destroy people who were non-white. I said, okay, that's my grudge. That's where, and sure enough, I was in school in 2011. Trayvon Martin happened 2012. Tamir Rice, 2014. Michael Brown. And the names kept coming. Sandra Bland, the names, blah, blah. And I remember the older generation saying, we've been here before. Emmett Till, 1950s, right? He was one of many, but it was Emmett Till that really captured the heart of America, that America is this ugly. America is this content with this type of brutality. And Trayvon Martin, I was sure, because it was clear, the laws were clear, that George Zimmerman committed murder, but then all of us have to hear one generation again, not guilty. And so I fastened myself to this movement, and I'm so glad for the Black Lives Matter movement. I'm so glad for Patrisse Cullors, Opal Tometi, for starting the Black Lives Matter movement in the sense of organizing us towards ending white supremacy as we know it, because that's the movement that we were called to.
And where are we today, right now?
In 2024?
At this location.
We are at the Fifth Christian Church, Disciples of Christ, where I'm the senior pastor.
How long have you been senior pastor?
Been here since COVID, so May of 2021. They called me, I was their intern pastor, but then they called me as their senior pastor permanent pastor, September 2022.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And how old are you? If you don't mind?
I am 37 years old.
So old. And and so tell me, and this is in the Kinsman neighborhood.
This is Kinsman, Mount Pleasant, Lee Harvard, Lee Miles, yes.
Thank you. Mm-hmm. And so how are you feeling post-election about the community? Are you feeling more optimistic, less optimistic, about the same? Why?
Well, I'm in the movement, so I'm optimistic. I'm never assuming the Democrat Party is going to be the answer, or one of these political parties is going to be the answer. I'm always assuming the people are the answer. If when we fight, we win, right? The people fought in Cleveland for a ceasefire resolution against what was going on in Palestine. When we fought, we won. We got the ceasefire, right? What we saw in this election, right, was a Democrat Party okay with genocide. Let's be clear about that. A genocide that's on the news, a genocide that's on Facebook, on Instagram. We saw the primary candidates say that Israel has a right to defend itself. And the unspoken corollary of that is Palestine does not have a right to defend itself, right? Someone with my name, Ralph Bunch, with my name, the first black ambassador to the United States. His first duty as an ambassador was to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict in 1940, Ralph Bunch. And he went out there and tried to broker some type of treaty that would only be broken by the state of Israel in the 1960s when they began to slaughter Palestinians by the tens of thousands, right? And now here I am at 2024, the echoes of those same efforts from earlier black folks like Ralph Bunch and earlier Palestinians. What does it take for peace in this hour? It's not the Democratic Party saying Israel has a right to defend itself. That's not the answer. The answer is reparations and recognizing that all these European Jewish folks were forced on the land of these Palestinians who it was their land first. And unless you unpack that, thinking about the structures in place that allowed for these people to come into these folks' land and not back to Germany, not restoring folks to Germany, which some are, or bringing folks to the U.S. in larger numbers, they told Palestinians, this is not your land, therefore we can do whatever we want to it. And Palestinians are black and brown people. Let's be clear about that. Who have experienced oppression all the way back to Jesus' day. Some of the earliest Jewish folks are Palestinians. Some of the earliest people who saw Jesus and walked with Jesus are Palestinians. And there also are the earliest Muslims. They also are the earliest other parts of Christendom or Islamic faith movements across that region. But what we're seeing is after the Holocaust, you saw superpowers say, you know what? Let's make Israel and let's give you this land because we just feel like doing it. But you have to remember, Jewish folks are already there, living in Palestine, in communion with everybody else who are Muslim, et cetera, et cetera. But it was superpowers that forced this state of Israel as we know it, this Zionist movement as we know it, that says if you are Jewish, you can come to Israel and have power to suppress others who are non-Jewish, but more importantly, who are Muslim. And they did that with the power of the one label, one word, terrorism. Labeling entire groups of people as terrorists gives the state of Israel the right for the longest time now, since the 1940s, for the longest time to kill at will anybody who was non-Israeli. I thank God for International Criminal Court. I thank God for the South Africa, who brought it to their doorstep to say this is wrong and forced the ICC to say at least Israel is committing genocidal acts. And now we're seeing arrest warrants for Netanyahu. We're seeing some type of a pathway towards resolve again. So Long answer, but hopefully it was
No,
a good answer.
and we'll come back to that too. And it's interesting you mentioned the various religions that were in Palestine, and as Christians, Palestine was the only place where Christianity is indigenous to the land. That people have been practicing Christianity since Christ was there, and so. Thinking back to the election and the voting piece, was there clearly, obviously, positions on Israel and support and genocide were an important issue for you on the ballot? Were there any other issues that were important to you?
Yes.
Or even races also between different candidates?
One of my members of my church, Dolores Gray, was running for a state board of education seat. And so that seat was important as the Board of Education was becoming more and more a thing. And I'm so glad one of my members was running. Gerrymandering is a big issue here in Ohio, always been. I wasn't kind of anything. I was upset that amendment failed, because it would have stopped gerrymandering as we know it. But you can tell misinformation is very powerful. You hear people say, I didn't know if to vote yes or vote no. And I'm thinking to myself, you just read it, it'll tell you. But you can tell misinformation is powerful when it comes to, how do I want to say that? It's powerful when the lines are already blurred. We've been living on gerrymandering for a long time. And to undo gerrymandering, you need a clear language that said, we're no longer going to allow people to write up maps that benefit just a few, or people, just one party line, right? But what was powerful about misinformation was they blurred the lines between yes and no. That binary is very important. That's why language is so important. That binary between yes and no is very dangerous. If you're not clear about exactly what you want. It was Frederick Douglass that said, power concedes nothing without a demand. It never does, it never will. And you can tell when they were able to use language to put out ads out there and create and blur that line between yes and no. Just enough to get people to say, I wasn't sure to say yes or no.
And were there anything in the electoral process that you had questions about, or any of the results that you had questions about?
I recognize I live in Ohio. There's a supermajority of Republicans here. I don't have any questions. I already know what's already at work. I already know. I am someone who voted third party. I voted for Cornel West and my mentor, Melina Abdullah, to become president and vice president. Here, I'm very clear at what's at play. That people are grasping for straws. You got a Democrat Party that really wants more and more power. You got Republicans that somehow want more and more power, even though they have the entire state under their control. So there were no questions. It does suck to have to be so conscious and have to see those the Republican Party wield their power. They're very successful at it.
Is there anything that you think is, specific to the community here that you feel might change after the election?
What I'm hopeful for is a black and brown solidarity. Is that we can't vote for a Democratic position when they are denying the rights or denying for Palestinians to be alive, right? Palestinians are running our corner stores, our gas stations, right here in the black community in Lee Harvard, in Kinsman Union area. Not only that, we're going to school with Palestinians. We are buying a lot of our essential needs from Palestinians. We're neighbors to Palestinians, right? And so it goes to show you, after this election, we're going to have to have a stronger bond that says, oh, we can't have a presidential candidate that's against them too. We can't get free unless we all get free. And people wanted Kamala Harris, but Palestinians didn't. That was clear, right? And what I hope is, after this election, that bond between black and Palestinians becomes stronger than ever. And we decide who runs in the Democratic Party.
Which is a good transition to question. So at city council and also at county council, you've been outspoken and currently, especially around the issue of the county's investment in Israel bonds.
Yes.
And can you speak to why that's important to you?
It's important because I didn't know it. I didn't know we were investing in genocide. When I go buy coffee, when I buy things in the county, my tax dollars are investing in genocide. I did not know. I'm sure the wider county does not know, right? That's intentional, because if you knew you were part or were complicit in that, I don't think you would be saying, I want $16 million to go towards genocide. That's not what the county is saying, nor are they advertising it that way, right? But what the movement has done, has highlighted, my arrest, my citation has done, is highlighted this $16 million towards genocide. People are asking me, why did you receive a citation? Why are you even there? Why are you even speaking up? Because our money, no matter where you shop, no matter where you work, no matter where you go in this county, your tax dollars is going towards genocide. That is not okay.
And I want to come back to your citation in just a minute. So you regularly speak out about racism.
Yeah.
The organization Visualizing Palestine recently published a piece on anti-Palestinian racism. And it articulates anti-Palestinian racism as different than Islamophobia or anti-Arab racism, and unique in the way that it includes the elements of Nakba denial, failing to acknowledge Palestinians as an indigenous people with a collective identity, excluding, denying, distorting, or silencing Palestinians, Palestinian narratives, or expressions of solidarity with Palestinians, and of course also dehumanization and violence or justification of violence against Palestinians. So can you speak to how you see anti-Palestinian racism as connected to racism experienced locally?
Lack of better words, I'm witnessing the niggerization of Palestinians. What's happened to black folks? Same thing. In Africa, sold to the highest bidder. You know, that process was not just because they want to create a capitalist system based off of something ethical or normal. No, they had to find a way to get free labor, find a way to get all their goods produced without the labor of white folks. So they niggerized Africans. And the Pope said, you know, Africans have no souls, therefore enslave them. Brought my ancestors over here. We experienced what's called a social death. We were enslaved people. We were told that any child born to an enslaved mother is a slave. We were told we had no souls. What Palestinians are experiencing is a niggerization. We're watching their kids be blown to bits, and yet we're saying Israel has a right to defend itself. We're watching mothers cry for their children. I want to be clear about that. We're watching their mothers cry. If that was a white mother crying for their child? So what niggerization does, I want to be clear about this, is creates a social death for Palestinians. Their cries, though, do not matter. They're supposed to experience this because Israel has a right to defend itself. Israel is a symbolic gesture from the Bible, right? It echoes the Bible. It echoes all what we know about the Bible. So that right there in and of itself increases this niggerization of Palestinians. It says, oh, they're Israeli. They're Jewish folks from the Bible. From the Bible, mind you. Not from oppression, not from empire, not from having bigger bombs or bigger guns. Oh, they're from the Bible. They should defend themselves because they're defending themselves against Egyptians and Babylonians, blah, 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 blah. But Jewish folks have always been there. And with the niggerization of Palestinians, it gives this social death excuse and permission for the superpowers of this world to kill them off at whim.
So tell me, on November 12th, there was a county council meeting.
Yeah.
You weren't permitted to stay.
That's correct.
What happened?
So I'm there with my clergy robe on. I'll be there today with my clergy robe on, because I've been there months before, speaking to we should not be investing in genocide, and watching not all county council people, because I want to shout out Cheryl Stevens, who wanted to actually look at our investment into Israel and say that this is something that the voters do not want. I want to shout out County Councilwoman Meredith Turner, who echoed Cheryl Stevens' concerns. How soon ever? County Council, I think, is 11 people strong, and so two people versus 11, who were 2 people versus 9. Those 9 being including the president of County Council, Pernell Jones, who's a black man, very powerful black man in this county, who's a funeral home owner. He's a deacon at a very prominent church here, who stood his ground to say this investment is a good product because it has a return to it, right? Anyway, we've been there for months at this past county council meeting. During that time, they had cut and sliced the First Amendment. They said, okay, not everybody's going to speak anymore. It's only going to be 20 people, and it's going to be random whom they choose out of this little pot. So I've been there where they didn't choose me at all. So now they're stripping away First Amendment for any and everybody. But they have to remember it's a public place. And the First Amendment is still proper when it's a public place. They forgot about that. So I'm there. County Council has 2 meetings on that day. They have Committee of the Whole and County Council meeting. So I'm there for a Committee of the Whole earlier in the day to make sure I get my public comment slip in. I got there early. I got there a little bit too early, and they said you can't put in your public comment slip until 4:30. I said, okay, that's fine. The Committee of the Whole goes to break. County Councilman Sweeney walks up to me and says, oh, I see you in your clergy round, blah, blah, blah. I said, this ain't nothing to smile about. There's nothing funny about why I am here. We are investing in the murder of Palestinians. He took offense to that and walked away. I go up to the places around 4:30, up to the woman who take us to public comment things, and I see at 4:30, some people cards who were coming in from the Jewish side were already in. And I said, I thought it was at 4:30 we put our cards in. She said, I said, it don't matter. I get it. Black folks.
When you say Jewish side, you mean pro-Israeli side?
Sorry, the pro-Israeli group that was slowly marching in, right? Coming into the chambers. Okay. And obviously they put their cards in before 4:30. And I said, I know what's going on here. Black folks at 4:30, anybody who's pro-Palestine, exactly at 4:30. If you're pro-Israeli bonds, whenever. I put my comment card anyway, I go sit down. Sheriffs come up, be like, what you said to Sweeney was offensive. What you said to other county council people was offensive. Therefore, they want to have you escorted out. I said, absolutely not. I have a First Amendment right. I don't care if Sweeney didn't like it. I don't care if any county council person didn't like it. I have a First Amendment right to redress my grievances to this very government. That's in this U.S. Constitution, because these people did not want to experience an establishment like they experienced in Britain to have the ultimate say-so of what they shall say and how they shall say it. So the framers of this country wanted to make sure that their citizens had a First Amendment right to free speech to the power structure.
So you were asked to leave, and then what happened?
Asked to leave, okay. I'm asked to leave because the group is now more and more pro-Israeli bonds. And we're in conversation, and they don't like the fact I'm wearing a clergy robe. They don't like the fact that I'm calling out the genocide that they are there in support of. They didn't ask them to leave. They asked me to leave. I leave, no, and I didn't just leave, but to receive a citation. I said I would only leave unless you give me a citation to say that my First Amendment right is not valid here. So they said, okay, we're going to give you a citation, and then I was asked to leave. They gave me a citation for disorderly conduct, which was moved up to aggravated disorderly conduct because they didn't like how the fact I made the police feel, nor how I made the county council feel, or how I made the Israeli support group there feel. A clear violation of my First Amendment right.
And what did the ticket say exactly?
You were rude to police officers. You were rude to county council. That's what it says.
Okay, and prior to exiting of county council, there's a video where Rabbi Sharon Marcus from Park Synagogue in Pepper Pike, she's overheard saying, commenting that you're wearing your pastor's robe, saying that it was, quote, offensive for Israel, or for Israelis it's offensive. Rabbi Marcus, she's one of two female rabbis at Park Synagogue, the other being Rabbi Rosie Baron Haim. And Rabbi Haim is also the chair of the Israel Bonds Rabbinic Advisory Council. Mm-hmm. Both have been advocates for the county's continued investment in Israel bonds. What's your reaction to seeing faith leaders testifying in defense of the county's investment in Israel bonds? And what do you believe is the role of faith leaders in responding to mass killings?
Sorry about that. Our faith, I want to be clear, the Christian faith emerges from a Jewish faith. Our faith emerges from Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, who wants to see God's love poured out across all borders, across all different types of people. And that's why you have a Palestinian Jew like Peter and Paul, who became followers of Jesus, but still Jewish. Peter never called himself Christian. Well, Peter did. Paul never called himself Christian. But they did this so that they can stretch this love that Rome was not exhibiting in the world at that time, in the biblical days. Rome was saying, if you're anti-Caesar, you deserve death, right? So Peter and Paul said, okay, let's go out there and spread the love of Jesus Christ. Let's make sure we remember the poor people. Let's make sure we organize people into places of love, right? And so when I hear faith leaders supporting money towards genocide of other people, they lost their faith. There's nowhere in the Torah, there's nowhere in the biblical text, there's no scripture that approves of a love only for a certain sect of people. I want to be clear about that. Even in the Torah, you see text about God's love for the Philistines as well as for the Israeli. God's love for the Egyptians as well as for the Hebrews. God was trying to expand God's love outside of the camp of the Hebrews and into the alien that we call the stranger, right? Christianity, all it did was affirm that, right? And one of my most brilliant stories about this was Jesus telling a parable about a man laying on the side of the road, and there was a priest who walked, who threw a blind eye to him, right? A Jewish priest walked and threw a blind eye to him, and there were others, but there was a good Samaritan who was beyond the border of the Hebrews, somebody who was seen as a natural enemy to the Hebrew, said, I'll pick you up. I'll put you inside of a hotel. And then told the manager of the hotel, said, if this person needs anything else, here's extra money. You make sure this person has it. Jesus then says to the lawyer, the Hebrew lawyer says, who then was the neighbor to this person? And the Hebrew person said, the person that showed him mercy. And right now, people of faith should be recognizing, are we showing mercy? If we're not showing mercy, we're not showing our faith.
And so is there, you went to county because you wanted to speak to the council people. Is there anything, considering the actions of what you experienced commenting on your robe or being asked to leave, is there anything that you would like to see in response after what occurred?
Yeah, we want to see that the Cuyahoga County stop investing in Israeli bonds. Israeli bonds are now becoming more and more war bonds, which means that we're going to lose a lot. The county will lose a lot more money when it comes to these bonds. That means either the county will have to realize that its portfolio is losing money and stop, or they're going to go all the way and lose all the money that they invested in, and keep investing on the basis of white supremacy. There will be no other basis, because it's no longer a good product when it's a war bond. It's no longer a good product. So that argument fails. So we need to stop investing in Israeli bonds, which is the only foreign bond that we're investing in.
This morning you had your hearing.
Yes.
The Cuyahoga County Council's chief of staff,
Yes.
Joseph Nanny, was in the courtroom.
Yes.
Taking photos, videos of you. What interest do you think Joe Nanny has in your court case, and why do you think he was there?
You can tell that he wants to feel powerful. You can tell he wants to feel like, when you come to his chamber, you're pro-Israeli bond. You don't speak out of turn. You don't come out of place. But he has to understand we have a First Amendment right to redress our grievances to a government. It's a public place, so that's the time, that's the place, and the manner is you're allowed to redress your grievances, right? Supreme Court is clearly established on, not just the Supreme Court, the appellate courts, all the courts, on a clearly established First Amendment right.
Well, my last question for you, Reverend Bunch, I really appreciate the time with you, is there's a county council meeting tomorrow night. Will you be there?
Tomorrow night, yes. Today is Monday.
Yes.
Tomorrow night, yes, I will be there,
Okay.
fully drobed and what have you, and looking forward to speaking truth to power with my community members.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate your time.
No problem.
Yeah, thank you.